I could never come to terms with the idea of the death penalty. But I also can't accept something like killing. It says that all killing is bad. And it doesn't matter why one kills, or who one kills, or who's doing the killing.
TV and movies, whilst not regularly, can have impact on the real world. Whether it be Curb Your Enthusiasm, which similarly to the film I'm going to be talking about today, dealt with the death penalty, in Curb's case stopping an innocent man from being killed, or Blackfish, which led to changes in animal welfare, or negatively, like the film Birth of a Nation. However, in this video, I would like to talk about a film that not only challenged people on their beliefs, but also ended up changing a law in its country, that being 1988's short film about killing. Now, this is actually an expanded version of an episode of the Decalogue, a 10-part miniseries, of course based on the Ten Commandments from the Bible. And the film is based on the commandment of thou shalt not kill. The plot following a young drifter, Jakic, who spends his time causing chaos and essentially being cruel, from chucking a rock off a bridge to causing a car accident, to pushing a guy into a urinal, or scaring a flock of pigeons in order to annoy an older woman who was feeding said pigeons. We also follow an upbeat, positive lawyer who throughout most of the film is the most positive aspect of the film, as we see after he passes his exam in order to become a lawyer.
Zostałem adwokatem. Zdałem egzamin.
The film also made it clear of his total opposition to the death penalty, even quoting Karl Marx with the line, quote, "Since Cain, no punishment has improved the world or deterred anyone from committing crimes," end quote. And a taxi driver, who we see doesn't really always do his job, whether it be him driving away from people, scaring dogs off their leads, and we see how all their lives interconnect, whether it be the lawyer and Jakic being in the same cafe, to the lawyer passing the taxi driver. Now immediately you can feel the film is delved on, as one of the opening shots is of a cat being hung, foreshadowing events to come, and it's implied that it was the taxi driver who did this, as he states earlier on in the film his affinity for dogs and hatred of cats. And obviously the look of the film is very unique and kind of ugly, which was very intentional.
In the film, the film is set in Warsaw. The city and the surrounding world is filmed in a very deliberate way. My cameraman, Sławek Itsiak, used colored filters which he made specially for the film. The filters were green, so the color of the film is deliberately greenish. Green is normally the color of spring, the color of hope. But if you put a green filter on the camera, the world you see seems much more cruel, more desolate and empty than if the filter wasn't there.
Now we see Jakic in the cafe playing with a rope, and he steals a knife, and eventually he makes his way to the taxi driver and gets him to drive to a secluded area, and then he strangles him. Now the death scene is quite long, which it kinda had to be, as we see it wasn't really thought out, and it's a long, brutal, hard to watch struggle with Jakic tying the rope tighter, but the taxi driver still fights against it, leading to him literally being pulled out of his shoes, even his retainers falling out, which just does Jakic. And eventually the taxi driver passes out. Jakic wraps him up in a blanket, but the taxi driver is still alive, and hauntingly begs and pleads with Jakic, offering money and mentioning his wife, and eventually after a long, hard, brutal, intense struggle, Jakic kills the driver with a rock. The film even makes fun of him as he turns on the radio in the taxi and it plays a song about a brave and courageous line, which of course Jakic isn't, leading to him turning it off. Now the film smartly doesn't show us all the legal proceedings, just the verdict, of Jakic being found guilty, which disappoints the lawyer massively. However, he does indeed get to say goodbye to Jakic. So much so, he unprofessionally asked the judge if he could have done any better, or get a more experienced lawyer. However, the judge praises his performance, saying that he had never seen a more eloquent indictment of the capital punishment, and even critiques himself, saying he could have been a better judge rather than the other way around. Now the film kind of changes structure in the second half after this scene. It becomes much more cold, calculated and formal, as the first half was much more all over the place, intentionally, as it mirrors the murder, whilst this half is much more structured and mirrors the murder that's about to happen, as it's well thought out, planned, as we see the day of Jakic's execution. Preparation for his death, from the curtains being a certain way, to the formal language and handshakes, to the official suits and uniforms. Now, the lawyer indeed gets to meet Jacek again, and during it, the film humanises him and gives possible reasons as to why he killed the driver, never really an answer. This is one of the most tragic scenes in the entire film, as we see the reality hit Jacek about what is going to happen to him. When we learn about his sister's death, which obviously impacted him, we get one of the film's best but most tragic lines.
Przeciwko mnie. Przeciwko temu, co pan zrobił. To jest to samo.
And you see he was right, as despite him not showing any signs of fighting back, the officers surround him when taking him to the execution room and drag him there. We are shown the foremost steps of his execution, from being told his crimes, the priest being there, he's even getting a cigarette to smoke before he dies. Then follows one of the hardest watches you will likely ever see. As you know what's about to happen, it can't be stopped. We see Jacek cry and plead to no avail, and we see the lawyer actively struggle, even nearly faints. And unceremoniously, they drag him to the rope and hang him.
Pociągaj, 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 jeszcze, dość!
The film ends on the lawyer crying in a field alone, having just witnessed something he so evidently and morally opposed.
We're never told.
I znamy powody
We all
prawne,
know the reasons why society kills the boy,
społeczeństwo,
but we don't know his real human reasons, and we never will.
Film, in my opinion, comments quite well on the cycle of violence, and a focus on strangulation, from the cat which is hung by the taxi driver, who is then strangled by Jacek, who is then strangled by the state. Thus, a quite well done commentary on the cycle of violence. The film was a massive success, particularly, winning several prizes at the Cannes Film Festival and the European Film Award for the Best Film. However, it was, of course, controversial, with Polish audiences not being happy with the parallel between the murders of an individual being compared to a state. However, in the director's interviews, he makes it quite obvious he's opposed to all forms of murder. Now, the film stirred a big debate in Poland and coincided with the debate about capital punishment in Poland, and due to the film being widely seen, as well as the Decalogue series being viewed by around 15 million viewers on TV, which was a large percentage of the Polish population at the time, being around 40% of the total population, watched it. And because of the film's impact and the timing of the release, it led to a 5-year moratorium on the capital punishment in 1988, and eventually it led to the total abolishment of it in the year 1997. This film playing a vital role in the changing of the law. Other films post this would of course focus on the death penalty, from Dead Man Walking to Green Mile, and several others. However, they were much more dramatic and made by Hollywood, while this was raw, grounded and unceremonious. It showed you what would happen and what did happen, without any real build-up or suspense. Overall, a really powerful, haunting, tragic film. It was so well done and executed that it led to the changing of the law of a country, showing the power that film has as a medium and that it can have on society.